We are live.
All right. We are live. That's wonderful.
Already one comment from Barbara who just said sigh.
Oh, because we're 1 minute late.
We're 1 late.
Barbara, I swear we could never please you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Addressing History episode. And, D-Day is coming up in just a few days. 2 days, actually. And we did one of our Tavern talks on D-Day, and it'll be premiering on June 17th at, is it 17th? Yes. June 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And to talk a little bit about that just before the anniversary, and also to get your whistle whetted for the Tavern Talk, is the historian who joined us on the Tavern Talk, and that is none other than the great Doug Downs. Hello, Doug.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Pull the mic a little closer to your mouth.
Sure.
All right, Doug. So we did this Tavern Talk on the airborne operations on D-Day.
Correct.
And I think everybody in the audience there really loved it. Partly because they told me afterwards, but also you can just see it. You could just tell. I don't know if you caught that, but having done 4 of them, I could definitely tell like that was something that they really enjoyed. We talked about, we had 2 things to read: Blood on the Risers, and what was the other one? It was just a compilation.
I kludged together a couple of articles basically to try and cover the whole thing.
That's right.
It's so broad reaching.
Yeah.
That to get a little snapshot of each, I kind of took a couple different articles and kludged them together to give us a more complete snapshot of the entire event.
And what I thought was really good about it was, the audience, obviously we come from a Civil War podcast. Mm-hmm. And we all have interests in other areas of history, but the Civil War is where we really focus. And so my sense was, and maybe this was just from my own bias, that because this is my situation, I know a little bit about World War II, but not enough to have the balls to do a podcast about World War II in the way I do Gettysburg, right? And so I really only had to go off of what you gave us to read. And of course, movies.
Yeah, Band of Brothers. There you go.
Right, Private Ryan, all that stuff. The Longest Day, it's another good one. But I kind of got the sense that the audience was the same way, because we did a very good job at staying in our lane on this one. Where all the other ones, we kind of stray and we go flying over here and flying over there. But this one was really good. So let's start off, though, give the audience a little bit of an idea of what they can expect from the Tavern Talk. Why Normandy? Why are they invading Normandy? What's so special about Normandy?
So, this is part of the invasion of the Allies of Northwest Europe in 1944. Everything has led up to this. Nazi occupation of all of Europe has happened really since the May of 1940 when France falls. The United States gets in the war in December of 1941. We have a Germany first policy, but we don't have the army. We don't have the skills. We don't have the Freedom's Forge is not spun up enough to give us the equipment. So we're a long way to get here. North Africa, Sicily, Italy, all of this is building up the skills and the material wealth necessary to take on this beast, which is ultimately what many people, including George Marshall, would say is the fastest way for us to win the war is land in Northwest Europe, drive to Berlin. When a soldier has his boot on Adolf Hitler's neck, then the war is over. This is finally the effort. This is now where the Allies go back into Europe. It is for the United States, it's certainly 3 years in the making. If you want to say for England and the rest of Europe, it's better than 5 years in the making when the entire free world now focuses on 50 miles of coastline in France. This is to be the beginning of the end.
And the idea of using airborne troops, first of all, how at the point of the planning for D-Day, how old is airborne units or are airborne units in the military?
Yeah, so it is really an outgrowth of first the development of aviation. We start to see this in World War I. But it's also then everybody trying to solve the problem of World War I, which is static defensive lines. Oh, if you could drop people out of aircraft, you could get behind the enemy lines. This would put mobility back in the battlefield. And people play with this. The Soviets play with this a lot in the 1930s. So do the British, so the United States a little bit, but so do the Germans. And it's really the German use of airborne forces early in the war. Norway, Ibn Imal, when they go through the Low Country, and probably Crete is the best example that tells everybody, oh man, if you could scale that, you can achieve great results. And that's when it really starts to explode, certainly in England and the United States. So it has really gotten to the point that you could scale it where you could launch brigade, division-sized elements and drop them from the air.
That sounds so crazy to me. I mean, I know we do it even to this day, that large of a number of troops. But in those early days, and this is something that I always suffer from, is I just call it a modern arrogance, where I think that previous generations weren't capable enough to do things that we can now do, but that's where it starts. But divisions, that's a lot of people, that's a lot of equipment, that's a lot of everything. It requires a lot of planes.
Oh, yeah, it's a remarkable. And this is the other thing is, when we think about, certainly, our Tavern talk is about the American airborne in D-Day.
Yeah, the best, of course.
So, but we are working up to this. We drop a regiment when we're talking about Sicily.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of lessons learned. They have 9.5 months to glean, like, hey, that didn't go that well. What do we need to work on? And then they do exercises even before Normandy. We do exercise in February, March, April, May, where every time they're learning lessons. Like, hey, we need to use Pathfinders. We better do better navigation. We got to do better rendezvousing at night. We need young guys to take initiative and move out and get after their objectives. So it is active learning along the way. And when you think about this scale, it's never been attempted before, so throw a little more risk on top of the rest of it.
You mentioned Pathfinders, and don't let me forget to go back to that, because I want to get into that. Because when I was watching the Tavern talk to prepare for this, we got to the Pathfinders part, and we didn't stay on it very long, and I blame myself because it's my job to move things along. But I was like, wait a sec, that sounds crazy. That job, the Pathfinder. So we'll get back into that first, or a little bit. But before that, how about intelligence? Kind of go into the difference between Allied intelligence and German intelligence.
Sure. Well, so we are obviously trying to, we always say on battlefields, we need to understand ourselves, understand the enemy, understand the environment. Part of the intelligence is to understand the environment and the enemy. One of the things is that by 1944, the Allies have aerial supremacy, meaning they're going to take photographs of pretty much every inch of the area that we're going to invade, but that also gives them good intelligence about drop zones and landing zones. So that's immediate feedback, photographic.
Oh, wait, let me ask you a question. Are the Germans doing this, or at least attempting to do the same thing?
So they would, if they could actually get across the channel.
Okay.
The contested airspace really happens. This is part of, we think about the conference's setting policy. Casablanca conference in January of 43 is going to say, hey, combined bomber offensive, British dropping bombs at night, Americans dropping them in the day. But part of this is going to be baked in this idea of called the point blank directive, which is to say, not only are you going to target German industry, you're going to go after the German aircraft industry. And along with that, we want to force German air to come up and try to defend the homeland, during which we're going to shoot them down. What does that translate to? Between January and May of 1944, 99% of the German Luftwaffe will be shot down.
Wow.
They lose 20 to 25% a month. They can produce aircraft. What they can't produce are pilots to replace the pilots that are being shot down.
Okay.
So even when you think about the guys they're sending up now, he's got 100 hours. Well, now he's fighting against a guy flying a P-51 who had 275 hours before he arrived at England. Now he's flying the best aircraft of the war. Like, that guy's getting his teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
So this is how we get aerial supremacy, which is a prerequisite necessary to do a landing of this size.
Sure. Okay, so the intelligence gathering, so we've got aerial reconnaissance, but it's a lot more genius than just that.
Sure. So now think about the idea of, okay, France is occupied, but you got people back behind enemy lines. This is the Maquis or the resistance fighters who give all kinds of detailed intelligence about where German defenses are, where the trunk lines of communications flow off the Cotentin Peninsula through St. Mary-Glise, so they know that we're going to cut that. We fly in Jedburn teams. This would be members of the OSS, the SOE, would drop behind enemy lines with radios, and they would train people behind enemy lines to gather intelligence.
Like civilians.
Civilians.
Yeah.
And then we've broken the ultra code from Germany. So now we are able to take German signals intelligence, decrypt them so that we can understand, which is some of the most difficult thing to understand of your adversary, which is intent. Not only where units are going, but why are they going there? So now you get that. Plus you get also open source things. One of the things when they're trying to figure out, when they start the initial planning for Normandy, they write to put out on a radio, hey, if you went on vacation in Normandy to Calais and you have postcards of when you were at the beach or you took pictures while you were there, send them in. They keep that open for like a month because they get so many postcards and pictures. But what it does is provide, what's the beach look like? What's the gradient look like? What's the silhouette of the beach as you look back across? Hey, what buildings might be there? So they take all of these things, stitch them together, along with the idea that the British at this point, the double cross system has turned all of the German spies. So now they're double agents providing intelligence back too. So they take all of that to try and knit a picture together of what are the Germans doing and what does that environment that we're going to be jumping into or landing into, what does that look like?
That's so brilliant. Postcards and, I mean, just, I don't know. Like
it's super creative.
That's what it is. It's very creative because the Germans, no, they're not really doing that, right? Like, I think one of the points that was made was that, German intelligence is very like close to the vest. Like even people that are on your team don't even know everything that they might need to know. Whereas the Allies are sharing it. But they're also sharing misinformation with the enemy. And then when they hear stuff coming, go into that too.
Yeah, so this is really, if you think about the idea, if you turned every German spy into a double agent, it means you could, feed data into the German intelligence system.
Right.
If you're decrypting ultra posts, that means you put information in the system. When you see them move units because of a piece of information you put in the system, you know that it's working.
Okay.
So now what that means is, first of all, it eliminates the idea that we ever take a single source of intelligence. It's a multi-source intelligence now. If we find something out, can we confirm that by flying over? Can we confirm that by signals? Can we confirm that by somebody who's behind enemy lines? So you're never reliant upon a single data point from a single source. It makes it much more reliable. And if you're trying to plan the most risky amphibious operation of the war, that's really important.
All right, now let's get to the Pathfinders. Because after watching it again to prepare for this, like I said, I think that is the craziest job in the world now. Because these guys go ahead of time. They're dropped behind the lines ahead of time so that I almost said airlines, so that the planes bringing the invasion force, or the I guess the tip of the invasion force, over for the drop later, nowhere to go. And they have all these different ways of telling where they're supposed to go based on things that the Pathfinders have done. But it's a really risky job, not only to life and limb, but to the mission itself, because you might not even get in the right place. You might lose your equipment. Go tell us about like the whole Pathfinder thing.
Yeah, so Pathfinders are really an outgrowth of, when we talked about Sicily, it doesn't go that well. Mm-hmm. And one of the lessons learned out of that is, hey, we should send people in early to mark the drop zones. Effectively, we're going to create a beacon and a signal system. So the beacon's on the ground, the receiver's in the aircraft to direct them in. We're also going to come up with lighting panels so that we can drop these guys down. They're very good at what they do. They find the landing zone. That'll bring in the rest of the stream so that we can better concentrate and keep all those forces in one place. This is always the paratrooper problem. So that's the idea. And you're right, super risky, because you're going to drop in a small number, 120, even on D-Day.
120 total or per team?
No. So the Pathfinder teams is 12 to 15. So it's 120 total for June 6, 1944, to mark 6 different drop zones that we want the Americans to get into.
Those guys had to be shitting bricks.
Well, or, yes, I agree. They're incredibly nervous, and this is true, but they're all nervous. But then if you join the Pathfinders, you know what you thought?
What?
I'm the best paratrooper in this damn division. Of course I should be a Pathfinder. I'll get there. I'll set up the beacon. I'm going to get it done. I can't leave it to any of these other guys. I'll make sure it all happens.
Okay.
So you're somewhere between that. Yes, you're scared, but you're also the right guy.
Yeah.
Because this is your time, and you're going to make it happen.
So how successful is this a 120-man force of Pathfinders?
Not terribly, is the problem.
What happens? What gets in their way?
There's a couple of problems. First of all, we know that the weather has a major impact on how the drop goes for everybody, but it impacts the Pathfinders too, because there's not a weather plane to go over before. They're the first guys to realize, oh, there's weather over the Cotentin Peninsula. Oh, by the way, as always is the case, the Germans get a vote about, hey, when guys are floating down, for instance, the guys who land in the 501st landing zone, there happens to be a Fallschirmjäger unit, meaning a German paratrooper unit that's there. And they recognize that'd be a really good place to drop a division. So those guys get shot. Meanwhile, everybody else will land. The Germans had flooded many of the fields to decrease mobility. So if you landed with your beacon, even if you landed, the beacon got destroyed because it landed in 3 feet of water.
Yeah.
So then, and if you didn't get exactly to your drop zone, did you make it in time to set up your equipment? So the Pathfinders was a novel idea, and it was probably the right one to try, right? This is all, if you think about the aggregation of marginal gains. How do we slightly make a better chance of get to where we're trying to go? It was a good decision to try and use them, but ultimately they are not terribly successful. They do account for some very good drops. The 505th drops almost entirely altogether. Their Pathfinders got to their drop zone.
Okay. So the Pathfinders drop. If they can do their mission, their tasks, they do them, and then they hide. Like, I mean, what do they do after that? Like
so this also becomes interesting. I mean, first of all, you're out. Drop zone's a big, flat, open field. So now you're out there alone and unafraid,
right,
setting up either lights or beacons. Now, they're unidirectional lights because you know where direction they're coming in, but nonetheless, you're setting up lights. So you are incredibly vulnerable. Once you guys get that set up, you're looking at your watches going, well, they should be here 15 minutes from now. Turn it all on.
Okay, so it's not a very long time that they're there ahead of the...
If it all goes right.
If it all goes right.
So,
but obviously the planes, the sound of the planes are going to alert the attention of the Germans, right? And so I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's crazy.
It's gutsball.
It really is. Yeah. Okay. So the Pathfinders get in, they do their thing there. How about weather? We, because it keeps getting delayed because of the weather and everything like that. Obviously, you got to have good weather if you're going to be flying airplanes and dropping people out of them. You need to be able to see the ground, right? You need to be able to see these beacons or these lights and go into weather a little bit.
So obviously now that we have the the big motion picture, pressure is entirely about the weather decision that recently came out. Because Eisenhower's never had good luck with weather on any of his invasion days. So we'll just put that in a hip pocket.
Okay.
But the idea of everybody's got a different set of criteria, right? We want to land at low tide. We want it to be a full moon. We want it to be something less than 15 knots of wind. If you're an aviator, you want to have, well, at least for the airborne guys, they're going to drop at 600 feet, but they need to have enough visibility below it, so call it 2,500 feet. Now, the bombers probably want 8,000 feet. They want about 30 degrees of visibility. It'd be good to have some clouds that we could hide behind. So you put all those together, you get to like 121 to 1,
right, that
you're actually ever going to get all of those things at once.
Sure.
Now, ultimately, they get close. They get a nice 36-hour window. And truth be told, the weather is not as bad as most people thought.
Oh, okay.
When they go over the channel, they talk about, hey, I could see a full moon. We were flying, and they're flying about 1,500 feet. Then they drop down to 500 feet. They're trying to keep the German radars from seeing they're coming. And then the idea was once you got over the Cotentin Peninsula, you would climb up 1,500 feet, drop down to 600 feet so that you could actually make your drops happen. The problem is there's a cloud bank right over the landmass.
Oh.
And so it goes anywhere from 300 feet to 2,500 feet. Because we don't send a weather plane, they don't know it's there. So wave 1 hits the weather. Radio silence, because we don't want to tip off the Germans that here we come. So it's not like you in the first wave would, send a radio message to me back in row number 8.
Right.
Heads up,
right.
Bad weather. So once these guys hit the weather, there's only navigators in 2 out of every 5 planes. So if you're flying close formation, well, if I'm on the left and now we entered a cloud bank and I can't see you anymore, the left guy goes left, the right guy goes right, the high guy goes high, the low guy goes low. And now you start to break up these formations. This is one of the things that spreads them apart. And, even when we think about the ones that are successful, 505th, these guys saw the cloud bank and they climbed up above it. They were able to keep their formation together, which meant they were able to drop them all together.
Okay.
For everybody else, they kind of suffer from this. And then, of course, the Germans fire at them. And if you get fired at, you got a couple of reactions, right? You can go low, shorten the amount of time they can shoot at you. You want to go faster, which is good for you not to get shot at, but lousy if you're going to be a guy dropping out of the plane. So this and if you jink and jag to try and stay away from being shot, because it's a normal reaction, this also tends to spread people out.
So you mentioned getting shot at. How long does it take for the German anti-aircraft batteries to wake up?
Well, so we started by talking about intelligence. It's interesting for all the aircraft that get hit, and granted, any one that gets hit is a disaster, but they suffer 2.5% aircraft losses for June 6th. So the intel, first of all, tried to steer you around large concentrations of anti-aircraft artillery fire. But there is an advantage in this case. It's a little like walking in the woods. It's not the first guy that gets bit by the snake. It's the second or third guy. Right. So the Germans, the first planes over are okay, but it's waves 2, 3, 4. Now they're awake. Now they know what's going on. Now they're prepared. So each one gets a little more dangerous as the night goes on.
And how many waves were there total?
Well, if we do anything about it, we really got to talk about it kind of in two big ones, right? We're going to drop the 101st Airborne, and then you're going to drop the 82nd Airborne about an hour later. And it's just a massive stream, was what it should be,
right? So
that we can actually get to our drop zones, because we want everybody to land all at once. And not unlike, we talked about Civil War, the idea that we are using these linear formations that we're going to attack and keep everybody, because we want to clinch fits. We want as many paratroopers in the same small piece of ground as we possibly can, so that we can generate combat power, because you start off with 0. Once one man lands, now the race is on. How fast can you build up before the other guy does?
We're actually not going to get up to and through the landings and the invasion in general, because we want you to watch the Tavern talk. Leading up to all that point, but in a general sense, I guess, because there are problems with dropping the troops. Because they're all scattered out, as we mentioned before, and everything like that. But we see this in Band of Brothers, where you've got 101st and 82nd guys working together. So is it kind of like, are they the first unit to be an army of one? Like, trained to be an army of one because of the nature of being airborne?
This idea of there's a concept that they call LGOPs, little groups of paratroopers. That when you get dropped, you're going to meet up with whoever you can meet up. You'll have a rendezvous pot, and once we get enough guys together, it's time to go off and start accomplishing the mission. Okay. And if we're nowhere near our mission, well, then we should start cutting telegraph wires. We should start sowing confusion everywhere. There's all these guys out there trying to make it happen. But it ends up being little groups of men, often not even from the same unit, but, well, you're a lieutenant, I'm a sergeant. I guess I'm following you, lieutenant, and now I'm off on your mission.
That's impressive, but I mean, that's your training.
Well, on top of that, if you think about talent management across an army that we've built from the beginning of World War II, right? We're number 16 or 17 on Earth when the war begins. Mm-hmm. But now, Airborne's all made up of volunteers.
Right.
Every one of them. That means those are all the guys with the initiative, courage, gumption, all those things that you
screws loose.
Yeah, also that. Yeah. But the idea of there's talent there.
Yeah.
These are the guys who volunteer to go do that because I want to be around other good people too. And that's what they create. And even both in the training and our lessons from the past, it has told them that you can't wait forever. You guys are waiting too long. You need to get out there and start getting after it. So now you've super empowered all these volunteers that were already pretty empowered anyway to go out and go make things happen on behalf of the Allied landing. And they do.
Yeah, I think when you see interviews with those guys, they, a lot of them say well, I wanted to be the best, or I want to be among the best, or something like that. And, figure if you're crazy enough to jump out of a plane, you're probably pretty good at other things or something. And that makes sense. You're not just a regular old grunt, getting trucked around or anything. You get to jump out of a plane.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful view before you do.
And think about that. The moment you land, for just a moment anyway, you're your own general.
Yeah.
You're making all your decisions you want to make.
Right. All right. So is there anything else that you want to add, like, to kind of set the stage for the airborne operations on D-Day Tavern Talk?
Well, first of all, it was a neat format just to go ahead and instead of have a conversation, have a bunch of other people in a conversation. Now, this is a little bit like being a tavern. Yeah. Well, hey, I heard.
Right,
Let me tell you, there was once a guy who told me. That part was fun.
And no fights, but that was the only thing that wasn't like a tavern. There was no fights. What'd you say, Tad? I'm sorry.
Not on this episode.
No, not on this episode. Oh, that's right. We have it on the John Brown one. Fist fights.
It is a remarkably risky event. To drop.
Tavern Talks.
Tavern Talk may or may not be. This one didn't seem to be, but like dropping 2 airborne divisions behind enemy lines is incredibly risky. And everybody knows it. We lose sight of that because we know how it turns out.
Right.
But there are, Eisenhower's deputy is telling him within days that you're going to lose 90% of your gliders and 75% of your men. Like, that's a lot and this is why everybody who talks about Eisenhower is a great CEO, blah, blah, blah. No, man, he's a commander.
Yeah.
You don't own that kind of risk, and you don't own that decisions about life or death unless you're a commander. That's his call. We forget that this is incredibly gutsy. And even when we talk about this, and I don't want to skip to the end, but we always talk about Bloody Omaha Beach, 2,600 casualties, June 6, 1944. And we say, oh, Utah Beach, so successful, 200 casualties on June 6. No. The reason the airborne's dropped is to get the guys off of Utah Beach. When you think about 2,600 casualties amongst the airborne, add that to the 200 off of Utah Beach, which tells you the ante to land in Europe on June 6, 1944 is approximately 2,800 men a day. And you have to conclude the airborne into Utah because it is one integrated plan. They are there to get the guys off of Utah Beach. It is part of looking, as Montgomery would call, at the intricate whole. This is what Eisenhower's having to do when he makes the decision to take the risk to launch the airborne on June 6th.
We'll get into that, though. The plan. So the airborne is what kind of to once they push through on you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this becomes really important.
I don't know the question I want to ask.
So when they originally came up with a plan for landing in Normandy, it was a 3-beach landing. And the first time Montgomery sees it and Eisenhower agrees, we got to expand this. So they expand it to 50 miles. The last beach to get added is Utah. Because they're landing in Normandy, there is no major port. You need a major port because when we land, we need to land, build up, and break out. The buildup requires ports. The closest port is on Cherbourg, which is why Utah Beach is on the Cotentin Peninsula. We're going to land at Utah so we can get Cherbourg, and that's going to be our first port. The problem is, just inland of Utah, all the fields have been flooded. So effectively, Utah Beach is an island. How do you get these guys off of the island? And there's like 4 or 5 causeways with basically lakes on either side of them. So the idea is if we're going to get you guys off of Utah Beach, we're going to drop the airborne. We're going to drop the 101st. That's going to secure the causeway so we get everybody off the beach. We're going to drop the 82nd. They're going to secure the bridges over the Murder Ray River to do 2 things. 1, stop the inevitable German counterattack that's going to try and drive them back into the sea. And the other thing is secure the bridges off of Utah Beach so that ultimately we can drive across, cut off the Cotentin Peninsula, and get to Cherbourg so that we can secure the port that ultimately allows us to make this whole invasion to work. Again, part of an intricate whole.
Yeah. All right, here, let's see. Let's go up to the map here. Where are we? I don't speak French. Where do we want to go here?
No, you were right where you were.
Oh, right where I was. Okay, good. You do speak French. Okay, so you're talking, they're going to come in over here?
Nope, go down. Right down there is the divide between Utah is just above where your pointer is.
Okay.
Right in there.
Okay.
Okay, there's a river
St.
there.
Mary Glace. There we go.
Okay, yep, that's exactly right. So that's a landing. Now, just inside of that, if you keep going down.
Oh, there it is, Utah Beach.
Yep. If you keep going in, what you'll see is there's a ridge line, and then it drops down to what we would think of as the beach plain. But across that beach plain, there's 4, at the time, they numbered them 4 causeways. But that ground was all flooded because effectively the Germans take those rivers there, the locks that were put in to effectively keep fields from being flooded. So you would open the gates at low tide, all the water would flow out. You'd close them on high tide so the water couldn't get in. It makes arable land. The Germans just reverse the process. On high tide, they keep the gates open. All that water comes in, and then they trap it. And effectively, what they're trying to do is limit the maneuverability of forces as they land. The Germans can't cover everything. They think the Allies are going to land in Calais. We're going to take some risk down here. I'm willing to hamper on my own mobility, but I'm certainly going to decrease theirs. So it is a part of understanding the environment. And why are we landing on Utah? Because we need Cherbourg. And if you are, then Airborne becomes the way to make sure that that's successful.
The Tavern Talk premieres June 17th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we get way more into this with a room full of tipsy nerds. And we only limit their drinks to 2, so they don't get too bad. We want them lubricated, but we don't want them sloppy. But it was a great crowd. And I think you're going to enjoy it. But before that, coming up on Monday, the 8th, is the Little Bighorn Tavern Talk with Jim Hessler.
Finally, yay.
Yes, it's finally. That was the first one we shot and the first one we started editing. And poor Tad had to go back and undo a bunch of stuff that we did the first time. And, because as we did the other ones, we're like, we don't need to keep zooming in and zooming out on people. So go and take all those off and poor thing. But anyway, we've almost got that, and that's it. And the D-Day one is the last one. We did them all in order of appearance throughout history, or chronologically, I guess is the word for that. And so that's why D-Day is the last one. But D-Day is coming up in 2 days, the anniversary of it. So we figured we had to do something for you here now. So don't forget to catch that episode when it comes out. It should be fun for all of us. And we've got a clip to play of it for you as we leave here. But I want to thank you, Doug, for coming in and helping us with this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. And Tad, as always, wonderful job in the back there. And why don't you go ahead, play that clip, and thank you all for watching. We'll talk to you next time, and enjoy your D-Day weekend.
I talked about the cracking of the German Enigma code. So we have Ultra. The British double cross system has also turned every spy in England into a double agent. So now they're feeding information in the back door, and they're able to tell when they think they read something, is it something that we gave them? So that's one of the ways we can go ahead and decrease some of the noise. The other thing is we have some time. So the idea that we can, we can send aircraft to go photograph that. They're going to send frogmen that'll actually go climb up on all those beaches and take sand samples to make sure that armored vehicles can drive across them. In that time, with that noise, there's also room to operate. And so what it does is become this very focused, this is the planning effort to try and decrease the noise and make sure we see the signal. Which is why when you think about it, though, there are really only so many places the Allies can land. It's Calais or Normandy.
And they started to use the noise in their... I mean, that noise was feedback that they were getting somewhat from the Germans. So they started to realize what the Germans were thinking, and they let the Germans think it. Okay, you think we're going to do this? Right. Okay, we'll reinforce that. So we're going to throw the noise back at you and use that to
confirm their suspicions.
Yeah.
And they get confirmation through Axis Sally, who does the radio broadcast saying, I know y'all are going to jump, because she's been fed all this information, and it's coming back. It's propaganda against the Allies and stuff. That, and they let bad things happen because they don't want to compromise the fact that they broke the code.
This is true.
And they had the 4-rotor. There was a 3-rotor code in the beginning. Now they have the 4-rotor code. That was the rate that DF was designed to get, and they didn't get it. But they've got a 4-rotor code now, so they're able to break stuff. But they don't want the Germans to know that they're breaking, so they let, unfortunately, bad things happen from time to time rather than compromise their intelligence gathering system.
The last two things I'll throw at you is, first of all, this is the purpose of multi-sourced intelligence. So you're never really relying just on one thing. We heard through Ultra this. Hey, Resistance, can you confirm that the 91st is in the Cotentin? Oh, we can. So now we have, nothing stands on its own, but you can always use the confirmation. And the other thing I would say, by late 1943, early 1944, the people doing this job are actually really good at it.